The following is rated S for spoilers.
Al? You okay?
Hello and welcome to the Popcorn Hangover. My name is Alex.
And I'm Nate.
And today we are discussing Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, directed by Eric Appel, written by Weird Al Yankovic himself and Eric Appel, starring Daniel Radcliffe, among literally every other famous person on the planet. Released November 4th, 2022 on the Roku channel with an estimated budget of $8 million. Because it was released directly to the Roku channel, I don't have opening weekend numbers, of course. But I was very impressed by the fact this was made for $8 million.
Impressive.
Also, considering literally any person with a speaking role was extremely famous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nate, how are you doing this week? It's been a minute since you've been on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I love that I'm back for another parody kind of movie.
You know, I didn't realize that until you said it like right before we started recording. Right. I almost feel bad, but also I feel like it's very fitting for you.
Oh yeah, no, it's entirely within my realm of like fun antics.
Yeah, Graham is going to be out for a few weeks dealing with some family stuff, so we're going to have a few special guests in the upcoming weeks, starting with the one and only Nate Lewis. Nate, what were your thoughts on Weird?
So Weird Al has always been in my life. My dad was a huge fan. And so when I saw the original like teaser trailer for it, I was like, okay, this is going to go one of two ways.
Right.
It's going to be either very serious and really cool movie of Weird Al, or it's going to be Weird Al. And of course, it's Weird Al 100% of the way through.
Yes.
So being raised as a Weird Al fan by my dad, and then Daniel Radcliffe, a very prominent millennial actor who I've literally grown up with.
Right.
It's perfect.
It was. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer and I thought this was like an actual like music biopic, and I was like, wow, Weird Al must have a really like intense story that I didn't know about. I don't know what his actual story is, but I really hope it involves abusive parents and drugs and running into the jungle to kill Pablo Escobar. I feel like that is that's great. I love that Weird Al. I really hope that's the real story, even though I know there's no way it is.
No.
So Nate, here's an interesting question. You said that like Weird Al was like was introduced to you by your dad.
Yeah.
What was like your first real like introduction to Weird Al? Like what was the song? Like what was?
Oh my gosh. So I can't remember exactly what year it was. I think it was post 2006 because of where we were living at the time. But for a Christmas present, he got a DVD of like the best 25 Weird Al songs and all of their music videos downloaded onto it. And just like a kid on Christmas, he ignores the other presents and immediately is like engulfed by this DVD and immediately turns on Dare to Be Stupid.
Okay.
Which I showed to you before we started recording. And you can see kind of like how the cogs are turning in this man's head. The thing that you have to understand about my dad is he was a math teacher.
Okay.
And so like you see him like teaching algebra and calculus and statistics, and then the man's like dancing along with Dare to Be Stupid on Christmas morning.
This very serious professor. I'm just imagining him like in a tweed jacket right now.
Pretty much, yeah. he had quite a few sweater vests. So.
A very stereotypical
math teacher.
Okay. Listening to Weird Al.
He loved him.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. My dad was all about the 80s pop, and so the fact that he could get all of it with just Weird Al and it being funny and parodied, as a theater person himself, he was very hooked on Weird Al.
Yeah. I think my first introduction to Weird Al was in like 4th or 5th grade music class, and we were talking about parodies, and the teacher showed us I Love Rocky Road.
Yeah.
And I always remember just thinking like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And I haven't listened to a lot of Weird Al. I mean, I really like all sorts of different music, but parody and Weird Al in general is not something I really like dove into a whole lot. Like I know Like there was a Star Wars one, which was a parody of American Pie.
Yeah.
I knew that one. And he did like a Hamilton, when they did like the Hamilton covers for a year. I know he did one of those, the Hamilton polka.
I'm a big fan of eBay.
eBay. You showed me that one right before we started recording.
eBay's good.
Yep.
And then White and Nerdy.
White and Nerdy. Okay, that was another one.
And you cannot forget the one that was mentioned in the movie, even Amish Paradise with Coolio.
Okay, Amish Paradise, I didn't know.
You didn't know Amish Paradise.
Eat It, obviously, I was very familiar with.
Right.
It's iconic. And I love how they made that one like the song that the whole movie was like focused on.
It's a really big one.
I mean, yeah, obviously, it's very catchy. I mean, it's Michael Jackson. It's a really clever parody. Yeah, I don't know.
Wait till you see Fat.
Okay, let's actually dive into the movie.
Sure.
I remember hearing that Daniel Radcliffe was going to be playing Weird Al, and thinking,
person. Perfect casting.
what are these casting directors thinking?
Yeah.
And then
Daniel Radcliffe is obviously like 6'7", just like Weird Al.
Of course. Daniel Radcliffe is a very, very tall guy.
Very tall.
Obviously,
Very
everybody knows this. But like, I don't know. I remember hearing that and thinking, what is wrong with these people? And then I saw the movie, and I feel like Daniel Radcliffe was like acting his butt off.
Oh yeah.
Like, this might be one of my favorite Daniel Radcliffe performances, and it's in a parody movie.
Oh yeah.
About Weird Al.
Outside of the Harry Potter movies, how many of the Daniel Radcliffe starring role movies have you seen?
I haven't seen a ton, I'll be honest. There was Swiss Army Man.
Amazing.
Which was like surprisingly really good. Here's the thing about Daniel Radcliffe that I just think is so odd. He takes he's Harry Potter.
Right.
He can have literally any role that he wants. He can snap his fingers and he could be like the lead in a Marvel movie. He could be Wolverine.
He's going to be Wolverine.
Everybody wants to be Wolverine, but he's not going to be because he refuses to do it.
He's actually headed back to Broadway.
He loves Broadway. Like, he's Harry Potter, and he does the strangest roles of all time, like in Swiss Army Man, where he's a dead guy
who farts
all the time.
A lot.
Or like, I remember Guns Akimbo. I never actually saw that movie, but he just it's Edward Scissorhands, but instead of scissors, he has guns for hands.
Yes.
Like, what is wrong with this guy?
Horns was a personal favorite.
Horns was another one I didn't see, but I remember seeing trailers where
So Horns pretty much like his girlfriend dies and everyone's like blaming him, like saying that he's the murderer.
Okay.
And he starts growing horns, who then everyone tells their deepest secrets to him, and through this new superpower with the giant horns on his head, he's able to figure out who did it.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What is wrong with this guy? He is such an amazing actor. Why does he take like, I don't want to say real roles, but like, why didn't he take like, I don't know. I feel like any other actor would be like, let's do a Marvel movie. And
right.
He seems to have zero interest in it. Probably because he was already Harry Potter his entire life. Yeah. So he already has like that fame and, that recognition. I don't know why, but like, why was this like the greatest performance of his life?
It was really good. And I think because he has been taking these weird roles, right? Pun intended. He's been setting himself up for this one, and he was actually Al's first pick.
Really?
He was Al's first pick to play him.
Really? So they went to Weird Al and they said, "Hey, we're writing a movie," and he obviously helped write it.
Yep.
And Weird Al said, like, they said, "Who do you want to play you?" And
Daniel Radcliffe.
He said Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I remember whenever they announced that Daniel Radcliffe was playing Weird Al, and I thought, like, that is the strangest casting choice ever. And then I saw a trailer, and I was like, wait, why does he fit so well? Like, he kind of even, like, looks...
It's the mannerisms.
Like a younger Weird Al. I don't know. That's so interesting to me. And Weird Al even made a cameo appearance in this movie.
Oh, yeah. He played the, like, record label manager.
Yeah.
Who like said that you'll never have a career making
which
parodies.
I think is the funniest way to do like a parody musical biopic is having like the terrible record label person who's like, I don't believe in you, you're the worst, and have it be Weird Al. I think that was the perfect parody decision that they could have made. Speaking of guest appearances, who is your favorite like cameo in this entire movie?
Okay, so Conan O'Brien is a very close second.
But Conan O'Brien was in this movie? Hold on.
Yeah,
hold on. Who did Conan O'Brien play?
I can't remember the Andy Warhol.
Wait, hold on, what? I didn't notice this.
Conan O'Brien was at Andy Warhol at the party doing like little film bits.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I loved that because he was playing Andy Warhol really well.
Okay, by the way, like Nate and I literally just finished watching this movie. And like the entire time we're both just like laughing hysterically. We're looking at each other like, what is happening? I did not notice funny, Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, Conan O'Brien was playing Andy Warhol.
Okay.
And then, but Rainn Wilson, especially in the
Rainn Wilson was fantastic.
Rainn Wilson, man.
I told you when the movie started. So like at the beginning of the movie, there's like the poster of Rainn Wilson and his character. I knew this wasn't going to happen because I'd seen trailers and stuff, but I was really hoping that there was just a poster of Rainn Wilson on his wall, and that was it. I was hoping that he wasn't an actual character. It was just Rainn Wilson in a top hat on his wall. Yeah. That's what I was hoping for. Obviously, Rainn Wilson killed it, though. He did fantastic as Mr. Demonic.
Demonic, yeah.
Was that what it was?
So he's a disc jockey that, like,
of course,
influenced Weird Al's life.
Yeah. I would say that's weird, but I literally just filmed a wedding and I talked to the DJ and he introduced himself as, I was like, hey, I'm Alex, like, nice to meet you. He's like, oh, hey, he's like, I'm Spin. And I was like,
you're Spin?
Okay, what's your real name? Like, obviously your name isn't Spin. Why are you introducing yourself as Spin? Anyway, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
So I mentioned this a lot, like in the movie, like, that's going to make a great GIF.
You said that so many times, and it was so true.
The staging, camera play, and like mime work that the actors and crew put into this movie pushed the laugh from a 10 to a 12 for me.
The humor was, honestly, the jokes were pathetic. They weren't even like that clever or unique, but just for whatever reason, every single one hit for me.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, it was so perfect. And again, I don't know why I was expecting like a serious biopic for a Weird Al movie, but I can't imagine them doing it any other way.
Let's talk about that. You go into this movie, like all the way up until watching this, you thought it was a serious one?
I thought it was an actual biopic. Okay. I thought it was like, and we're going to talk about it next time, but I thought it was going to be like a Bohemian Rhapsody or a Rocket Man or a La Bamba. Like, I was expecting a serious movie about Weird Al.
What's your reaction when, like, within the first 5 minutes of the film, here comes his dad with his plastic hand? I lost this in the factory. You'll never know what real days work.
So he's like, I know you're setting me up because you already know the answer. Like, I looked at you and I was like, wait, is this real? Is this actually how things played out? Because the acting was almost, because if it was real, like, the acting was so bad. But I very quickly realized, this is supposed to be a joke. This is supposed to be a parody because it is Weird Al.
It's Weird Al.
I didn't realize that he co-wrote the movie. I mean, in terms of like writing critics, he gets top billing. Oh, yeah. Maybe it's because he's Weird Al, not Eric Apple.
It's his biopic.
But yeah, like, I didn't know any of this going in. I went in pretty blind, to be honest. I'd seen the one trailer that they released, at least the main trailer. I'm sure they released more.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, I'd only seen the one trailer, and I thought this was a serious movie. And I remember looking at it and being like, "Is this real or is this a joke?" Because I can't tell. And I think that was what was so clever about the movie is it was kind of marketed as a serious movie, in my opinion. I mean, maybe I'm just ignorant and I think too much of movies. I thought it was marketed pretty like as an actual biopic, and when it starts, it kind of seems somewhat serious. And as the movie progresses, like, they could have started with Weird Al going on a Rambo mission to kill Pablo Escobar. Mm-hmm. But instead they said it like for the end of the movie. And like, as the movie went on, it just got stranger and stranger and
weirder.
And weirder. I was about to say, you beat me to the chase. Like, I don't know, it just kept getting more and more weird and more Weird Al.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was so clever. Like, they hooked me with it felt kind of real, but also I very quickly realized, this is a parody, just like Weird Al. But it's kind of, I don't know, like, the storytelling in this movie was just so brilliant. Like, they could have made it weird the entire way through, but instead it was very self-aware and knew what it was trying to do, and it just slowly progressed into a way where, like, okay, we're gonna start as a weird we're going to make fun of biopics. And as we go on, we're just going to get completely wacky and bizarre. And we're just going to have a good old time. And let me tell you, this movie was a very good time. I enjoyed myself thoroughly throughout it.
It was very funny.
Yes. Like, this is a movie that, like, I paused several times. Like, we went back a few times. I was like, wait, that was Josh Groban. Like, why is Josh Groban just a waiter who gets his tray slapped down for no reason? Like, every Conan O'Brien apparently was in this movie. Yep. I answered the question myself. My favorite cameo was Lin-Manuel Miranda.
That was good.
Because I know that Lin-Manuel Miranda always talked about how much he loves Weird Al, and I love that, like, the movie opened with him calling Weird Al to death. That was just fantastic across the board.
As you know, growing up with the Weird Al, I kept seeing like little references to some of his songs.
Yes.
So when they open up with this hospital scene with Lynn, and I'm listening, I'm waiting for the beeps on the heart monitor to start like a virgin.
Okay.
Or excuse me, like a surgeon.
Like a surgeon. Yes.
Like a surgeon.
Don't get it wrong here.
Well. Like a Surgeon was the first one. No, I'm kidding. Weird Al is great with his parodies, and this movie, even in the marketing, was parodying it. So Dan and Al would go on to these late night shows, right? And they're like, "This is 95% accurate to my real life, all the way, all the way through it." So that's just. The joke didn't stop in the movie. It was continuing in the marketing. So the fact that you were getting confused by the trailer, I think, was on purpose.
And that's fantastic. I love that so much. Seriously, I don't know much about Weird Al. Unlike you, that's one of the reasons I had you on the show was because you do like Weird Al. And I didn't keep up with this movie a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up here in the future for the podcast. Like, what were some of the references that layman like myself didn't get? For example, like at the end of the movie, like his mom was very fat, and I was like, "What is going on with that?" And you knew instantly where that was going. Like, what were some of the other references to other songs that someone like me like would not have gotten?
So they ended up like hitting, like they would hint at it, and then 5 minutes later, oh, there's your song. You know, they were talking about the sandwiches, and I was like, oh boy, Bologna.
Right.
And then like again, the heart surgery. Like a surgeon, his mom, even like, I don't know, you probably don't know, but some of her lines that she was saying, were lyrics to fat.
I figured that out at the end when she said like, "Oh, I'm fat and I know it" or something like that.
And then we have the very heartfelt parody scene of him reconciling with his father, and he's like, "I was raised Amish," and I was like, "Oh no, here we go," and you're like. Amish, what?
Here's the thing. I think this movie was more enjoyable for me because I was watching it with you, who is a Weird Al fan, because I wouldn't have gotten that until like the end. It would have just felt like yeah, whatever kind of thing. Like, oh, okay, like that point A led to point B.
Right.
But watching it with you was a very different experience because you did understand it.
I saw the jokes coming.
Right. I feel like you appreciate this movie more than I could have, just because I'm not a major Weird Al fan.
Sure. I think some people who aren't maybe Weird Al fans will go into this movie and be like, that was weird. Pun intended again, I'm sorry.
I mean, it was weird.
It was weird. It's a weird movie. But going in as a fan of comedy, dry humor, sarcasm.
The humor was so dry. I mean, you even said it yourself. You were just like, this is so dry.
Gosh.
Like, it was at like the party scene or something, and you were just like, wow, this is so dry. Yet
Jack Black
can't give a bad performance. Like, that was just so perfect.
Just out of nowhere.
No one else could have pulled off that scene in particular except for Jack Black. He was the only one that could have done who could have made such a ridiculous moment in a movie so hysterical while playing it so seriously.
Oh yeah. I mean, so in the party scene again, we're talking. That's where you see Jack Black. You have Conan O'Brien. Somebody was dressed up as the lady from Addams Family, the mom.
Okay, I don't think I know some of you. Daniel Moore in that scene. Whoever was playing Daniel Moore. Oh my gosh, when he said like, oh, like, we'd love you to play at Live Aid. And Daniel Radcliffe said, heck no. I lost my mind. Because Live Aid obviously is like the best rock performance of all time, if not one of the greatest live performances of all time.
Again, yeah.
And the fact that they called that out specifically, and Weird Al was like, heck no. Like, I laughed laughed way harder than anyone should at such a ridiculous joke in such a ridiculous movie. I thought that was the funniest thing in the entire world.
It's the fact that they're picking on a biopic finale, of which they are parroting.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, listen, it is a biopic finale. Like, that is the finale of Bohemian Rhapsody.
And they said, heck no, we're not doing that. I was like, oh
my gosh. We have the second segment is going to be a very fun one, because we're going to have a lot of fun with that one. Yeah.
It's another one of the references in the movie. I can't remember the comedian's name, but like, I remember it was another one of those ones growing up. It was a guy who, like, his whole punchline was smashing watermelons with a hammer.
Yes.
And I'm going to have to look up the guy's name, and we'll get back to that. But like, he made him in that. He made an appearance in the movie through a cameo again. And he's like talking about how we need the tarps. No one needs tarps at a concert anymore because it's different now.
Yes.
It was
yes.
weird. So
yeah,
the subtle references to that, like, early comedy and stuff. It's kind of like a homage.
That's one of the things I love about, like, the comedy genre is the more you watch something, like, and you take a break and you come back and watch it again, and you gain more experiences, like, things become funny later. For example, I was just watching Ted Lasso, rewatching Ted Lasso, and there's a moment in, like, one of the first episodes of the season where they're debating on, like, what's the best Martin Scorsese movie, and they're all, like, throwing out, like, oh, Gangsters of New York, like, this movie, and then the character of Roy says silence. And everyone shuts up because he said silence. But since I watched that movie, I thought that was a funny scene the first time, right? But between the first time I watched it and the second time I watched it, I had seen Martin Scorsese's movie Silence. And I think it is it's probably my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's one of those movies that's so intense that, like, I want to watch it again because it was so good, but also it was so intense that I can't force myself to watch it again because it's just so much emotion and just depression in that movie. But when I watched it again, I laughed so hard because, like, I finally got that joke. Like, that's what I love about movies like this is the more you learn about what they're talking about, like, you gain more experiences throughout time, and, like, you go back and watch a movie. It makes the rewatchability of comedies and things like this, where they're making fun of actual events and their actual things. It makes it so much better. You can actually rewatch a movie. And I feel like this movie will be something where if I go back to it in 5 years for whatever reason.
After you listen to all of the Weird Al music.
Exactly. Now I feel like I have to listen to Weird Al now. Because, like, I know the totally true, 95% true story of Weird Al. And how he killed Pablo Escobar by throwing one of his platinum records at his forehead. I mean, obviously, that is exactly how it happened.
The fact that he used that as spoilers.
I mean, yeah, there's a spoiler warning at the beginning.
Spoilers. Oh, yeah. Rated S for spoilers.
Yeah. You listen to the podcast.
I love the podcast. The fact that he not only used his platinum records as a weapon, it was his body armor. To survive a Desert Eagle shot to the chest.
Well, the thing that was so clever about this movie too is I feel like a lot of movies would have just made that be a random joke at the end. It would have just been like a plot armor, literally.
Sure. But no, it was set up.
But the fact that they made it a joke at the beginning, and you just thought that it was a funny joke where he's like, yeah, I wear my platinum records, whatever. Like, they played it off as just a silly, nonsensical joke that had nothing to do with anything. And they brought it back, made that somewhat serious moment even funnier because they brought back a random joke.
It's Chekhov's rubber chicken.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. 100%. You're the one that brought up on last time you were on this show too, you brought up Chekhov's gun.
I love Chekhov's gun. It's such a brilliant writing style.
Yes.
And it's the fact that a comedy can use it this effectively.
And here's the thing, I don't know much about Eric Appel or Eric Apple. It's kind of spelled either way. I could be. I don't know how much writing he did, but Weird Al did get first writing credits. Is Weird Al actually a genius? I mean, he
obviously.
I mean, yeah, like he does write parody songs, so obviously there's a lot of like cleverness and like smarts going behind that. But like this movie was so great, and it was a parody. Like, and it was one of the best parodies I've ever seen of this very serious, very popular genre movie that we'll talk about next segment. I don't know. Why was this movie so freaking good? Why did I love this movie as much as I did? Because I was kind of going in with very low expectations. Maybe that's why I did like it as so much, because I wasn't expecting very much from it. I had a very good time watching this movie.
No, so Weird Al has been an entertainer for many years.
Yes, he has. When did Weird Al start? Do you know?
It's got to be late 70s, early 80s.
Yankovic's first show with his new band was on March 31st of 1982. And several days later, they were the opening act for Missing Persons, and they recorded I Love Rocky Road, a parody of I Love Rock and Roll by the Arrows. So yeah, March of 1982 was when like he started. And the fact that he's going 40 years later, and he's still releasing new stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. So, like, he did Blurred Lines, came out in 2013, I believe. And he did a whole parody of that, of, like, bad grammar. And that, like, had texting language had ruined grammar for a generation.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if my sister tunes into this episode, I just yelled at her for having bad grammar, and I should have sent her the song.
I think that's one of the brilliant things about Weird Al is that he doesn't have to try very hard. And I love how they pointed out several times was how literally his job is to write new words to songs that other people wrote.
Yeah.
That is, I love how self-aware this movie is. And I feel like there's something I didn't realize about myself if it weren't for the podcast. I love movies and shows and just things in general that are very self-aware and they know what they are and they don't try to be anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's why you keep bringing me back for these kind of movies, because you know that's what I enjoy. I mean, we talked about a little bit about that in our episodes on Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Go back and listen if you haven't.
You should, if you like Nate. That was a great one.
Self-plug.
Yeah, if you aren't watching the video podcast, we both just like point into the camera. Go check that out. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Great movie.
Good one. But movies that are self-aware and aren't afraid to like just know what they are and play on that. I think that's even what like makes fourth wall breaks good. And
yeah,
I
100%.
Was there any fourth wall breaks in this movie? I'm trying to think.
There weren't any fourth wall breaks, but like that's something that we talked about a lot in our She-Hulk episode, which should have lots of fourth wall breaking. Yeah, like just stuff that is self-aware just has a different. I feel like everybody's a critic now.
Yes.
I have a podcast and everything, and I'm a total professional and I know everything about movies. It's one of those things where I feel like everybody's a critic now with just the accessibility of being able to create and to put your opinions on the internet.
Of course.
And I love that movies are now just taking that and they're doing it themselves. And they're saying, yeah, we know that every Marvel movie ending is the exact same. So we're just going to make fun of it here in our funny Marvel show.
Gotta ask Kevin.
Or with Weird, where it's like, yes, we know that every musical biopic is the exact same, where they have parents who don't love them. They have a drug or alcohol problem, and they
hate their band.
They have a girlfriend that they've dated for a week, and that's the love of their life.
Their manager's telling them something they don't want to hear.
Exactly. Like they took all, and see that I didn't even realize were like musical biopic tropes. And we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about next segment. We've been really teasing this next segment. You better stay tuned for the next half hour because it's going to be very good.
It's going to be very weird.
It's gonna be very weird. But yeah, like I don't know, I love how self-aware this movie was, and like I feel like you have to do parodies. And I think that's one of the things that makes Weird Al so great is he's calling out things that I've never really explicitly noticed that are all trends in these movies. But like when I'm seeing them being made fun of, I know exactly what they're referencing, and I think it's hilarious because I know that that's what happens in every musical biopic. But if I had just watched Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man and La Bamba, I wouldn't have actually like explicitly said, oh yeah, this happens then, and then this is next, and this is next. Like I wouldn't have actually noticed those things, I don't think. until I saw it being made fun of. And then I'm just instantly aware, yes, that's what he's making fun of. It happens all the time. I totally get that. I don't know. This was just such a clever movie.
Yeah, 100%.
But also ridiculous, and it lived up to the name. It was very weird.
Dude, you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, the movie is what it says it is. I think it's best that the poster, and if you haven't seen the poster, go ahead and look it up right now, because the biggest words on it are just weird. The real Al Yankovic story is, below the weird.
Here's the thing I love. Okay, if whatever platform you're listening on, you should be able to see like the podcast episode like cover, like the image. If you go through, you're gonna see lots of oranges and lots of blues. Now, little inside baseball into filmmaking. Teal and orange is like the most common, like it looks really good film like color grade. So a lot of movies are gonna be like you're gonna see lots of teals and lots of oranges. Mostly teals in the shadows, oranges in the highlights. And if you look through all of our episodes, you're going to notice there's lots of oranges and there's lots of blues for like the cover arts that we use for the episodes. This one is purple. It looks totally different. It stands out like nothing else, and I love it. And that is exactly what this movie is. It totally stands out amongst the crowd of all the other blockbusters coming out. I mean, we're in Oscar season right now. All the big Oscar nominated movies are going to be coming out between October and December. And right in the middle of that, we have Weird. And it is the strangest movie of all time. It's only releasing on the Roku channel, which is also just completely bizarre. Yeah. Because who has Roku? I mean, we were like trying to figure out how, like, who can we borrow a Roku from?
We need a Roku.
And luckily I looked it up and I found out you can just download the Roku app. So if you're listening to this episode without actually watching the movie, go download the Roku app, watch this movie. It's not very long. It's about 100 minutes. Yeah,
it's worth it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. It was it was just a really fun watch.
The thing about good movies is that they have to be able to laugh at themselves.
Yes, 100%.
So Weird's doing that. Mm-hmm. And if you don't go into this movie being able to laugh at yourself and at, very blatant jokes,
yes,
you're not going to enjoy yourself.
Yes. I feel like this, I don't think this movie will be nominated for an Oscar because all of the critic movie snobs who are going to watch this movie are going to be very critical. Be like, this is so ridiculous. Why is he murdering Pablo Escobar right now? This doesn't make any sense. That's the point.
The whole relationship with Madonna too.
Everything about this movie was so great. Whenever he was like in his apartment, I was like, why is everybody so hot? And you were just like, wait a minute, why is everybody so hot? And then you just have Weird Al with this weird this Hitler mustache, the massive afro, and then you have all these like football jocks, like they're on the varsity team, like they're starters, and they're just like, yeah, you got this. We're gonna record a song in the bathroom, which actually apparently, as I looked up that last stat about when they started, apparently that was actually real. He recorded his first
95% accurate.
He did record "I Love Rocky Road" in a bathroom. I mean, it's not the worst place.
No.
Nate, do you have any final thoughts on Weird?
I've done parodies in my life. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the comedy genre. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I grew up listening to Weird Al, this movie encapsulates the feeling of being a Weird Al fan for all these years.
Sure.
And perfectly squashes a watermelon on a stump.
Yes.
To get all of the funny juices over the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Even as a non-Weird Al fan, I mean, I would consider myself I like Weird Al. I don't have anything against him. But I'm not I don't listen to all this stuff. He's not in my playlist anywhere. But I still very thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And it was fantastic. So that's our thoughts on Weird, the Al Yankovic story. But don't leave yet. We're going to talk more about this obsession with musical biopics.
Sure. And
how Weird just took that whole genre of movies and flipped it on its head. So stay tuned for next segment. We're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Dude, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a lot of fun, and it's not as difficult as I thought it would be.
No, not at all. Anchor has made it especially easy when it comes to actually getting our podcast out on the air. Because when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on all the listening platforms. So easy getting it over to Spotify, getting it to Apple, wherever you're trying to get your podcast to.
Yeah, I think we're on like 7 platforms just through Anchor. And not even just the distribution, but even just creating the podcast. Like there's so many recording and editing tools within it. So you can record, edit, add music in, sound effects, all sorts of things directly through Anchor. And it is free.
Dude, that's amazing.
It's incredible. So if you would like to start your own podcast, just like ours, go to anchor.fm on your desktop device, or you can go on to your mobile app store and download the Anchor app. Hey everybody, just want to take a quick second to tell you all about something that we are going to be doing here in a few weeks, and we need your help to pull it off. As you know, Christmas is just around the corner, and everybody loves doing advent calendars, and we want to do our own here on the show, where every day we have one mini episode for 25 days to lead up to Christmas and do a Popcorn Hangover Christmas Advent calendar. But to do that, we're going to need your help. Head over to our social channels, Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon, all at The Popcorn Hangover, and send us some questions. It can be about Christmas related things. It could be about our favorite movies. It could be about songs or books or whatever questions you may want to ask us. Ask away, and then we will answer those questions on one of the days of the show. Can't wait to hear from all of you.
Ding dong, man. Ding dong.
Welcome back to the Popcorn Hangover. We are discussing Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, starring Daniel Radcliffe, of all people.
Amazing casting.
This next segment is going to be fun. This is something we've talked about before. I want to say it was in our Whiplash episode. We were trying to figure out what genre do you classify Whiplash in, except for like drama. Like obviously it's a drama, but most movies are dramas, right? Like I feel like music has this weird genre, like this isn't like genre limbo. Like what do you call a movie about music? Because I feel like this weird misconception where like movies like Weird Al or A Star Is Born especially are considered like musicals, when no, they're not musicals. Because in my opinion, a musical is a movie where singing and dancing is just part of that world.
Yes.
Like the musical The Little Mermaid, part of that world. A part of their world. But whereas like A Star Is Born or like this, like music is not a part of the world. Like they're singing and dancing because they're giving performances.
Music is the topic.
Right, it's a topic, but it's not a part of like how people communicate with each other.
Yes. So I think the like quote unquote definition for musicals is when words can't say enough, music will.
Yes. The amazing Howard Ashman. Have you seen the documentary Howard on Disney Plus?
No, but I'm going to now.
You absolutely should. It is fantastic. So if you don't know, Howard Ashman essentially is a guy who created he's the foundation for the modern musical, in my opinion. He was the lyricist for The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. And one of his most famous quotes, which has always been used, but he's the first one who actually defined it. He said, with the musical, when the emotion is too strong to say, you sing. And when it's too strong to sing, you dance. And that is literally what musicals are. Like that is how you define musicals. I love Howard Ashman. He's one of my biggest like inspirations in terms of like creativity. Love the guy. In the last week of his life, he was finishing Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast. Like on his deathbed, he refused to stop writing because he knew that these movies are important and they're some of the greatest movies that Disney has ever made.
Golden Age.
Anyway, that's a topic for another time.
You have to bring me back. I love Disney. Anyway,
we're talking about musical biopics for the rest of today's show, which is what I thought this movie was going to be. It was not.
Still is.
I mean, apparently it was 95% accurate. I don't know where that 5% of inaccuracy was from. I mean, obviously, going through the jungle and murdering a bunch of people since last Thursday, including Pablo Escobar, like that had to be real.
There's a question that I have about that whole kind of scene because when they're having dinner, he's like, "This has been the best 6 hours of my life."
Yes, with Madonna.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you actually had a fun Madonna fact about like their relationship.
Oh yeah, so in I believe Jimmy Fallon on his show, he had Al on, and he said that the only time that he had ever met Madonna was for about 45 seconds backstage.
And here Madonna's like the evil villain that like completely turns Weird Al against like to the dark side.
Yeah. Feed in, and then I think I said it a couple times while we were watching it. She was being an enabler.
Yeah, you did say that a lot
and stuff. So it was funny to see a twist on kind of that parody of
for sure
the biopic villain, quote unquote.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of musical biopics that have had a lot of buzz. Bohemian Rhapsody was a big one. Rocket Man. Elvis is another one that came out this year. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of Oscar recognition. Those are recent ones. I don't know if it was in the first one, but I feel like it was like an early adopter of like the first good musical biopics, but La Bamba about Richie Valens.
Sure.
Also fantastic movie. What are some of your like favorite musical biopics?
So I again, growing up in like my household, I had a dad from Pennsylvania and a mom from West Virginia.
Okay.
Or Pennsylvania. Dad's from Pennsylvania, mom's from West Virginia. Excuse me. My mom really liked country, so like I was raised on like Dixie Chicks.
I'm very sorry for you.
Yeah, Dixie Chicks and Shania Twain, and then for some reason Johnny Cash kept coming up. So like every other Saturday. It was like Walk the Line or Fried Green Tomatoes on the TV.
Would you say that Walk the Line is like your favorite like musical biopic of all time?
I think it was up until Bohemian came out.
Okay. Because you own that movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
It is very well done. I think that the story of Queen, their music, the influence that they had on rock and pop music.
Absolutely.
Fight me in the comments.
No, 100%. Because at the time, like rock was pop music.
Sure,
it's different now, of course, but like that was what I mean. Pop music is just short for popular. I feel like people forget that a lot of times.
Yeah. So the movement that Queen had, and then one of my like kind of rules that I have for biopics is I think that the person that it's about should be passed on. I don't think that they should be alive for their movies. So like when we got Rocket Man, I wasn't as excited.
Sure. But that's something we're going to talk about here in a few minutes.
So when I heard Weird Al, I thought that was going to be like another like, he's not even close. So I was like, what's this going to be? And then I was like, wait a minute. This is Weird Al.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. You brought it up. Let's not say it for a few minutes. Let's talk about it now.
Sure.
So you don't like that they make biopics about people who are still alive.
Right.
I kind of agree. I never actually saw Rocket Man, full transparency. I heard it was fantastic. I do like some Elton John songs. It's something that Elton John's someone that like constantly pops up on my Discover Weekly on Spotify.
Yeah. Just
because that's the kind of music I listen to. I like Elton John.
Good music.
I definitely plan on seeing the movie at some point. But it's one of those things where like, the fact that he is still alive, it turns me off a little bit. Because to do something like that, you kind of have to have the person's perspective on it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that defeats the purpose of a biopic. I feel like a biopic should be the perspective of other people on your life because you're going to be very, very biased.
Yeah.
That's why I think Bohemian Rhapsody worked in the way it did was, yes, you still have members of the band who are still alive and who do still perform as Queen. They could be there. I actually heard that the two that are still alive were there in the recording studio.
Yes.
When they were re-recording all of their songs for the movie. I think that's different than actually having Freddie Mercury be in the studio and saying, no, hold on, I don't sing it like that. You need to go a little higher. You're a half step too sharp. You can go down a little bit. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a different, can
you imagine Freddie coaching them through singing?
Oh gosh.
For Live Aid.
No one can do Freddie Mercury like Freddie Mercury.
No, he's the best singer in history.
And honestly, let's talk about Bohemian Rhapsody for a minute. Okay? Because I feel like that might be the greatest musical biopic of all time.
It's definitely up there. I think it's the what's it called? It's what all other biopics are going to end up pulling from.
I think, yeah, future biopics are 100% going to be pulled from Bohemian Rhapsody. Yes. Like, I think that before Bohemian Rhapsody, and even Bohemian Rhapsody was pulling from La Bamba.
Sure.
Which was about Richie Valens. Can I make a confession really quick?
Go for it.
I thought the movie Bohemian Rhapsody was going to be about them writing what I think is one of the greatest songs ever recorded in history. Now, I'm very specific about saying recorded. I don't think it's one of the greatest songs like ever written, but in terms of the way that it was recorded in the time with the technology that they had, I think that is one of the greatest songs ever recorded. And what they're able to do with that, like all the layers and things that they would have had to have done with only having like an 8-track is freaking brilliant. And that's a discussion for another time. I thought
Queen is like Queen.
Queen is Queen. That's enough said right there. That's all you need to say. I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was going to be entirely about them writing Bohemian Rhapsody. And with the trailers, like I thought that that's what there's going to be. When I watched it, I was really disappointed when Bohemian Rhapsody, the song specifically, was given like maybe 5 minutes, and that's really giving them some credit.
Yeah,
like it was very quick. You had a quick Mike Myers reference, which was fun, and that was it. Like I was expecting more of the Bohemian Rhapsody aspect of it. And Queen is great. The story of Freddie Mercury is very interesting, and I definitely saw a lot of parallels that Weird was making fun of with Freddie Mercury's story.
100%.
But yeah, I was a little disappointed with Bohemian Rhapsody. I've only seen it the one time. Maybe if I saw it again, going into it, knowing what it was going to be, I would think differently. I was a little disappointed with the movie. Full transparency.
For me, maybe it's just a syndrome of graduation goggles or nostalgia goggles,
sure,
however you want to put it. Queen, again, that's another one of the things that I had growing up with that. It was Weird Al and Queen. And Kiss, funny enough, which can you imagine a Kiss biopic?
Weird, Queen, and Kiss. I feel like you're just like progressing through rock in terms of intensity. You have Weird Al, okay, that's a little bit of rock and roll. And then you have Queen, like, okay, that's definitely rock and roll.
Yes.
And you have Kiss, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Those were like the 3 bands that I remember my dad listening to. And then, so like if it was him home, that's what we were listening to. If my mom was home, it was Dixie Chicks, and When Money Grows on Trees. Earl Had to Die. You're understanding why I'm so weird.
Yes, 100%. Like the title of the movie.
Yes.
Look at that. We're bringing it full circle.
Pun intended.
We're just really bringing it. We're just in figure 8 with this full circle.
It's great.
Yeah. I don't know. Like Bohemian Rhapsody, I feel like is the musical biopic that all future musical biopics are going to be based off of. Did you ever see Elvis?
I've not, but again, back to Nate's childhood when Nate was a lad. No,
back in my day,
there was a figure in my life who was a huge Elvis fan, so I get all of the references and stuff.
Sure.
So watching the trailers was enough for me. That I was like, okay, so we're getting another biopic for another artist. Very cool.
Here's the thing that I think is interesting about the way that musical biopics are approached. Particularly in this year, if we're looking at Elvis and Weird, is how well the filmmakers are taking the lives of these people and making us somewhat relate to them. For example, Weird is very much a parody, and Weird Al does parody. So, like, those two things make sense. And as soon as I realized this was a parody of musical biopics, I wasn't like, oh, that's weird. I immediately said, oh, of course it's a parody because it's Weird Al. This makes so much sense. Elvis was kind of the same way. Elvis is a movie that, I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy as much as other people did. I'm going to hear more of my thoughts on that. Listen to our Summer Rewind and our review on Jaws we did a few weeks ago. A few months ago, actually, at this point, because it's been a while since summer's been over.
It's November, my guy.
It's already November. We're getting into Christmas season. By the way, if you aren't paying attention to our, if you skipped through our break segment, go to our social media pages and submit your questions for our Christmas Advent event that we're going to be doing. But anyway, that's coming up soon. Summer was a while ago. I said that Elvis, I talked about Elvis a little bit. Elvis, for me, I didn't like as much. I thought Blas Luhrmann was fantastic as Elvis. Like, holy crap, what a breakout role. I can't wait to see what he does next. But that movie, you do not have time to breathe. It is so freaking fast. I I said Baz Luhrmann. I'm done. Baz Luhrmann directed the movie? I'm sorry. I'm so dumb. Austin Butler played Elvis. I can't wait to see what Austin Butler does next. Not Baz Luhrmann. I mean, Baz Luhrmann is also a fantastic director. I can't wait to see what Austin Butler does next. Wow, I'm a mess today. Anyway, Austin Butler did fantastic in the role of Elvis. Can't see what he does next. But this was such a Baz Luhrmann-y movie where it's so freaking fast. You do not have time to breathe throughout the entire movie. It's just nonstop, quick cuts, lots of crazy transitions. But at the same time, like, that was Elvis's life. It was nonstop. And so when he does start going to drugs and alcohol, like, you kind of relate to him because you yourself can't breathe after 3 hours of his life. And again, this is a nonstop movie, and it was 3 hours. And it did kind of feel like 3 hours because you couldn't breathe, but also, like, I don't know, it just, that movie was so well executed in terms of it being about the life of Elvis. Just like how I think this movie is so well executed in it being about the life of Weird Al. While yes, it 100% was not 95% accurate, it was just a bunch of random shenanigans that Weird Al thought was really funny.
Yes.
But I still feel like this is kind of like what Weird Al's life was like, if that makes any sense.
I think Weird Al sees the world through a different lens than most. I think that's what makes great entertainers great entertainers.
Absolutely.
The fast-paced life, Elvis was the one who could live that.
Yeah.
And that's why his movie is like that. You see the struggle between the roots of home and the big city in Walk the Line with Johnny Cash. And you see the struggle with family ties, new country, new love interests, new bands and success in Bohemian Rhapsody. Just because Weird Al sees the lens of the world through those masks that have the nose and mustache and have the eyes, that makes his movie funny.
Yes, 100%. Here's a question. This is my last question.
Sure.
And I didn't prepare you for it.
No.
So if you don't have an answer, it's okay.
Let's see what we can do.
If there could be a musical biopic about any artist, who would you want to see a musical biopic about? Or if it already exists, but you would want to see it done differently, who would you want to go with?
So my two favorite bands of all time, and fight me in the comments if you disagree, but I really love Imagine Dragons.
Sure.
And I really like
really interesting story with Imagine Dragons. Sorry, what was your second one?
Panic at the Disco.
That's also a really good one.
And I think Panic at the Disco would make the better movie.
Really?
Yes. Okay.
Have you seen Cradle to Stage? It's on Paramount. It's directed by Dave Grohl. You should watch it. The first episode is about I forget the release year's name of Imagine Dragons, but it's about Imagine Dragons and how, like,
I think his name's like Daniel or Dylan.
Sure.
Starts with a D.
Totally. I 100% know. But yeah, it's about how, like, he came from, like, an Amish background and how he had to kind of, like, leave his faith, but also,
Is it
like,
Amish?
still has like some, like, he still believes in God and has, like, faith, but it's not the Amish faith. Like, it's very interesting. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I think Imagine Dragons would actually be a more interesting
Imagine
story.
Dragons would be super good because, well, I think they do a really good job with just their music.
Yeah.
You listen to their second album where they're talking about gold and shots. If you go back and listen to those lyrics or just read them, because they're fantastic ones. And then we move on to Believer. We have Demons in their first album that talks about the struggles of, just interpersonal struggles.
Absolutely.
So I think the reason why I think I would prefer Panic, they are more preferable in my taste.
Sure.
But Brendan Urie, the lead singer, currently wasn't even in the band initially.
Okay.
He was added in later on.
Interesting. And I feel like he's the one name that I know from the band. Because he's the lead singer, but I feel like I know that name very, like,
I'm trying to remember the other guy's name, but if you go back and look at their first album, it's him and the other, like, initial lead singer on the front of the album.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the album, and I'm going to get flambasted in the comments for this one.
You are.
But the second album where it's all the red and then all of the famous, like, pop culture figures at the Last Supper table. I'm trying to remember the name of the album and I'm struggling. But I think it's Pretty Odd. Is the name of the album?
Their first album?
Second album.
Odd.
Just Odd.
Odd was the second album.
So I said Pretty Odd. I was pretty close.
You were very close.
So in that one, I think that's when Brendan kind of brings in his lead vocals. He becomes the lead singer, and the
recorded at Abbey Road. Fun fact.
Yes.
Released on March 21st, 2008. I totally know that off the top of my head. I did not look that up just now.
And then I think it was 2 albums later where it's Too Young to Die, but Too something bold. Again.
You're gonna get roasted in the comments so
I
hard.
am. I'm in a music video for Panic at the Disco. Fight me.
Okay, we're gonna put that in the show notes. You're gonna send me that video.
Oh yeah,
I'm
sure.
gonna put it in the show notes. All right, I'm gonna cut you off here because this was a very selfless question. If you haven't figured this out already, this podcast is basically me just talking about things that I really want to talk about.
Yes.
So what particularly last episode was just me. The second half was just me ranting about Spider-Man's true origins. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you need to go listen to it. Especially you, Nate, because apparently you haven't listened to it.
I'm behind.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me set you up then.
Okay.
What artist or band do you want to see made into a biopic?
So if you're listening to, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that I'm wearing a shirt by the wonderful band Lawrence, and I would love to see a musical biopic about their group, but in a few years because they are just now kind of coming to
Fruition.
I want to say fruition. Like they've been relatively popular. Like the way I describe them is that they couldn't sell out like a stadium like Taylor Swift could, but they're also too big to play like in a bar. But their story is very interesting. It's a brother sister duo. Their dad was one of the writers for Family Ties, the show in the 80s.
Yeah.
He also was one of the lead writers for Miss Congeniality, the movie with Sandra Bullock. And fun fact, one of the leads, Clyde Lawrence, wrote the Miss Congeniality theme song. They couldn't figure out like who, like they were testing out all sorts of different like themes, couldn't figure it out. And so the dad was like, man, like I'm trying to figure that out. So Clyde like went to the piano and just played like a quick theme. And the dad was like, holy shit, go play that again. And he did. He recorded it, and it became like the official song for the movie when he was 5 years old. He's the youngest person to ever get his like music composers guild license or whatever. Anyway, like fantastic story across the board. They're a fantastic band. They're very like old soulish. Like it's, I don't know. I highly recommend them. That would be the band that I would say I want to see their biopic, because the way that they have grown, and also I feel like one of the ways that they grew to popularity was through TikTok. If it weren't for this podcast, I would not be on TikTok. I'm only on the TikTok to post clips and things for the show and
for me to send you things to laugh at.
And for Nate to send me really cool TikToks. Honestly, you're the only one that messages me. So if you want to send me cool TikToks, at the Popcorn Hangover, go send me some cool TikToks because I'm the one that runs that page. Like if it weren't for that TikTok, like through that, I saw an ad for one of their most popular song, Don't Lose Sight. And I thought, wow, like this Gracie Lawrence, who is this person? She is the most amazing singer I've ever heard. And I like realized I had discovered this band like years ago through another song. It's a long story, but I love this band so much. I would love to see their story, and the fact, like the way that I feel like they're one of the biggest bands who has used social media to propel themselves into where they are now. And now they're kind of they're moving through like crazy. And I'm glad I discovered them at the point that they're at. So when I first saw them perform, like it was at a very small venue. It was very like a close, intimate performance. And now they're performing on like Jimmy Kimmel and Colbert, and like they're doing all these like big shows, and they're selling out every night. And like, it's really cool to watch this band grow. Yeah. And I would love to see a biopic about a band or a person or a group where I've actually gotten to see them grow. Because for example, like I wasn't alive during Elvis's time or Queen's time or Elton John's time. Or Weird Al's time, like in terms of like when they really grew. Like I've
height of popularity.
I've witnessed Weird Al like release new stuff, or I've witnessed Elton John release new stuff, but I haven't seen them like in their quote unquote prime.
Yes.
So I would really love in general just to see a group like Panic or Imagine Dragons, where I have gotten to see their rise into stardom, or in my case Lawrence, I think would be a fantastic biopic at some point in time. I don't think they're quite ready for a biopic yet. I feel like there's still more story for them to write.
They're not at their peak yet.
Exactly. But yeah, that's what I can't wait to see is a biopic where I can actually understand all the references and I lived through all the things. So we talk about the last time you were here with Bodies, 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 like with this new kind of generation of people and movies and getting to see social media be the forefront of things. Like that's where I think music is really at right now, where pop music is at, is like with TikTok. There's so many artists that I don't listen to on Spotify, but I see pop up on TikTok or on my Instagram Reels. One in particular, because I film weddings, I mentioned earlier, like there's a guy who he's like, here's like the Avengers theme song, but as a wedding like march. Yes. Or like I see so many of those videos. I'm like, wow, this is so good.
There's a guy who did a English parody, and again, I'm gonna get him to watch anime at some point. There was a guy who did an English parody of Bluebird, which is the best Naruto opening of all time.
Okay,
and you can't fight me on that. Don't even try.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't wait to see the biopics about the movies, about the artists. About the artists, yeah, who are for us. Because right now it is older, obviously, like that's how that works. Elvis isn't around, Richie Valens isn't around.
Don't get me started on generational stuff again, man.
Yeah, we're running out of time. This is the end of the episode, Nate. Nate, do you have any final thoughts on weird or musical biopics in general?
Musical biopics need to represent the artist in the best of their abilities.
Absolutely.
Whether or not it's a funny parody or a serious drama about knowing who you are as yourself. Weird did what others were probably too scared to do and lean into that just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And it was weird and funny, and I want to watch it again.
Absolutely. You know what? I have nothing else to add to that. That was so beautiful and perfect. Yeah, I'm going to lean into that, like Weird.
Yes.
I'm just going to say, listen to what Nate said, because yeah, I 100% agree. Like, Weird took a risk, and I almost think it's sad that it's only releasing on the Roku channel. It's going to make it very difficult for it to kind of get put in front of other people. The fact that it was made for $8 million, that's something we didn't really talk about, is very impressive to me. Especially with all the cameos they did. I feel like those cameos were done out of a love and a passion for Weird Al and for the kind of stuff that he brings to the table. Yeah, I'm very impressed with this movie. I loved it so much. Highly recommend everyone go check it out. It's free on the App Store, on any App Store. You've been listening to The Popcorn Hangover. I'm Alex. That is Nate. Let us know what your thoughts were on Weird, and what is your favorite musical biopic and first concert. Let us know over on all of the things, Instagram, TikTok, patreon.com/The Popcorn Hangover. Next week, I need to give a tease. It's very obvious if you know what's coming out soon and what we like to talk about on the show. R.I.P. King. That is your tease as the music ends because I started it too soon. Yeah, that's all I got for you. Graham's not here, so I will say peace.